This segment brought to you by Bravo Company USA.
Hey gang, Larry Vickers here, Vickers Tactical YouTube channel. Today we got a little something different for you. Not too long ago I went down to South Carolina and hooked up with the guys at Panteo Productions and did some videos for Walther. They also asked, hey, while you're here, do you mind doing a little sit-down video based on your military career? I agreed to it, and now that we've seen the finished result, we're blown away. We started thinking about it. We get hundreds of new subscribers to the channel every day, and a lot of them don't know my military background. So it kind of made sense to share this video with you guys for your enjoyment. Special thanks to Fernando and the guys at Panteo Productions. Make sure you take time to check out their videos and their social media link listed below. Enjoy.
I joined the military right out of high school, graduated from Tri-Valley High School in Dresden, Ohio. I grew up in Ohio, Central Ohio area, a small town called Adams Mills. Joined the military right out of high school and graduated in 1981. Now, that came about because my dad was a World War II vet, and actually most of the adult males, certainly all the adult males in my town, that were my dad's age were all World War II vets. My uncle, I mean everybody. And that had a tremendous influence on me. You can't even hardly emphasize the amount of influence that had on me. My dad would talk about his military experiences and then talk to the other guys in town and whatnot had been in the military, and it just really just had a huge impact on me. So as time went on, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, like all teenagers, you don't know what you're going to do. But as time went on, I started thinking about, I think I might go in the military. It just really stuck with me. And then what was interesting is my dad was, drafted, and he served in North Africa and Italy. He wasn't in the Rangers, but he always held the Rangers to very high, to a very high standard. He always really looked up to him. He'd talk about the Rangers and all that stuff, because obviously it's wherever he interfaced with these guys, was around them, they left a very lasting impact, which of course has had a tremendous trickle down effect with me, because I was going to go in the Rangers. That was my thing. I went to the Army recruiter in Zanesville, Ohio. Buildings now shut down and everything, and got the brochure on combat arms and infantry and artillery and armor and all that stuff. And then they talked about Rangers. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. But I realized, this is no lie, I realized there was another page to the brochure. I was like, well, what's this? And it said Special Forces. I was like, so I flipped and I started reading the brochure about Special Forces. And that's when I connected the dots for the first time, the Special Forces and the Green Berets. Oh yeah, I've heard of that. That's right, the movie with John Wayne and all that. Okay, yeah. So Special Forces and Green Berets. And then I started reading through what they do in unconventional warfare and then specialists and different things. And the last line got me. It said, if you don't think you can make it, don't even try, because only the best can wear the Green Beret. And that was it. I'm not going to lie, that was it. As soon as I read that, I go, that's it. I'm going to be in Special Forces. I'm going to be a Green Beret. So nothing against Rangers, but the brochure had one more page to it, and I read through it, and the last line, boy, whoever wrote that did it. So I decided to go in, and at that time, it was graduated in 1981, so it was the end of the Carter era, and the military was in pretty sad shape. In the beginning of the Ronald Reagan era, where patriotism was on the rise, we were proud to be an American again. The military was ramping up, and so you could come in at the time and straight off the street and go to Special Forces, and I was what they called an SF baby, where I literally ended up, once I was done with the Special Forces qualification course, I was 18 for a short period of time, believe it or not, which is astounding now. You look back at it and go, my God, but remember they wanted people. So I was an SF baby. I went in and graduated in May of 1982, and I turned 19 in June of 1982. So I went in the military and went all the way through and graduated the Q course, and I was 18 years old. There's only a couple other guys with me. We had went to basic training and all that other stuff and went to the Q course with a bunch of guys, and slowly but surely they had been weeded out. As you can imagine, not many 18-year-olds, not many people straight from high school are going to be able to go in and complete that. There was only a couple of us that did. And then a couple years after I went through it, they discontinued that program, because the flaw in that system was you had a guy now, he was a Green Beret, Special Forces qualified, and he was now on a Special Forces A team, and he didn't know anything. I mean, he couldn't be any more inexperienced. I mean, he's 19 years old. I mean, he's clueless. So that was the flaw in that whole program, that SF Baby program. And then a couple years later, they did away with it. And I knew several guys when I was in the military throughout the years who'd been SF babies, and I was one of them. Went in, SF was great, but honestly, kind of found out that the mission statement wasn't really, they dangled a lot of carrots. They talked about scuba diving and free fall and all these cool things you're going to do and everything. But at the end of the day, you were a force multiplier. You're really trained and designed to go overseas and interact with indigenous or local forces and build them up into a fighting force, and you were force multipliers. That isn't really something I wanted to do. I mean, once I got in and I really found out what the job was all about, it wasn't what I wanted to do. At that time, that's when I found out what I did want to do. There's this thing called Delta Force. They were a highly trained special mission unit, cherry-picked, very difficult standards to get in, mainly SF and Rangers. That's what I wanted to do. Now, Delta did then and still does has a certain, age and rank standard. See, I couldn't go in, when I was 19, 20 years old. I had to be a certain age and so many years in the military. You realize you got to have some maturity underneath you. You got to get some of your silliness out of the way. But I decided I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do at that time. Yeah, I got out of the military after 4 years. I was in Special Forces, and I went to college. I went to tech school to become a mechanical engineering technician. Not a full-blown engineer, but an associate's degree in mechanical engineering. So you'd be able to go into a manufacturing facility, and I wanted to go to the firearms industry, FN or Colt or somebody, and I wanted to work in the firearms industry, and you'd kind of be a foreman level. Wouldn't be an engineer, and you wouldn't be a guy running a machine. You'd kind of be that foreman level. And that's kind of the training I got. The problem was, and the thing that just never really went away, and I stayed in Special Forces Reserve and in 11th Group Reserve at the time in Youngstown, Ohio. The problem was I never really scratched that special operations itch. I never really got that out of my system. So I thought, you know what? And I talked to a guy who tried out for Delta. I think I might try out for Delta Force. And I wrote him a letter. I got an address to write to recruiters and wrote them a letter, and they wrote it back. And there was no way at that time to go from the reserves. I was in SF reserves, but there was no way. They didn't have the mechanism for you to try out for Delta from the reserves. Now, they did later. They got that in place later, but at that time, you had to be active duty. So I was like, oh man, this is a big leap of faith here. In order to try out, I got to re-enlist. And I was like, man, I don't know about this. So I talked to all my friends and everything, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I re-enlisted, and it was interesting. It was still during the Reagan era, and they were still building up the military. It was kind of at the tail end of his presidency, his second term. But I was able to come back in the Special Forces at the exact same rank I got out of. So I had a 2.5 year break in service, and I went in the exact same rank. And I was able to pick where I wanted to be, and I went to Bad Tolz, Germany. Went to 10th Group in Bad Tolz, Germany. And went over there and started training for Delta. I was there a year, and eventually made it. Very difficult, easily the toughest thing I've ever done. Most guys will tell you that who've tried and went through selection. Exceptionally difficult. I had 88 guys I tried out with, only 13 of us made it, and went to OTC, and then out of that, only 11 actually eventually made it into the squadrons. So, out of 88 guys, 11 guys ended up crossing the hall, as we called it. Very difficult. That was in fall of 1988. ended up going to A Squadron, and I was very fortunate that it ended up being right when a lot of things kind of fell into place just by chance. We had invasion of Panama, and I was involved in the Kurt Muse rescue in Panama, Operation Just Cause. And then later on, of course, was Desert Storm. I was involved in operations in Desert Storm. So it was, the timing was excellent. It was just by chance. And I ended up going into Delta at a really good time frame in order to be, gainfully employed. Because prior to that, you had guys who really had been in the unit and been in special operations and hadn't done much. There hadn't been a whole lot that had happened really since Grenada in 1983. So then you fast forward to Panama in '89, so you had a 6-year span there where they just didn't do much. And just the way way things shook out. And I knew as soon as I got in Delta, I was where I needed to be. I knew it as soon as I got there. That's where I was meant to be. Looking back now, I was very fortunate to make the decision to try out when I did, because I've now realized in hindsight that when you try for something, and I'm sure it's like professional athletes, trying for, to try to play professional sports and whatnot, your window of opportunity is pretty narrow. And you don't really realize that at the time. You're in your 20s or whatever the case may be. You've only got a few years there to really make this happen, because it's such a monumental effort. It's such a monumental life change in so many ways that I've known guys later and some guys in the firearms industry today that have wanted to try out for Delta. And I remember, now that opportunity's missed them, and life has went on, and they don't have that opportunity to go back. But I've told them, you need to do it immediately. You need to do it yesterday. Because what you realize is life goes on, not only physically, but life demands, life changes. You're married, you got kids, just so many other things start coming into the equation that limit your opportunity. And I was very fortunate. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was very fortunate that when that opportunity was there, I seized it. And that would be something that I would tell people who are watching. Not necessarily trying out for Delta Force, but if there's something in your life that you feel like that you want to make a commitment to, that you really want to go for, you want to make that ultimate effort, you need to do it, and you need to do it, ASAP. Because what you'll find is, as time goes on, the clock will tick by, the months and the years will tick by, and then pretty soon you're 5 years, 10 years down the road, and your opportunity to do whatever you wanted to do will be gone. I was very, very fortunate that I took advantage of it when I did. I was 24 when I made it into Delta, and then I finished my career. I ended up, I was there for 15 years. So I essentially spent more or less 5 years in Special Forces prior to, and then I made it, and then I spent the last 15 years plus there, and I ended up with almost 21 years in the military. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Obviously, I got a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, and I had friends that were killed in combat and friends that were killed in training, but I wouldn't change it for anything. The thing that kind of stuck with me that has carried me to today was, I was a gun guy before I went in the Army. I liked guns. I went into Special Forces to be a Special Forces light weapons specialist. And then I carried that passion into Delta, and then I was able to take advantage of it there. It was, access to ammo for training. I went all over the country and trained with guys like Rob Latham and Jerry Barnhart, John Shaw, all kinds of different people. So I was able to really fuel that passion in Delta, and that kind of launched me to where I'm at today. The opportunities that were presented to me and that I was able to kind of feed that passion really has paid off in spades, and has really set up my post-military career. I got out, and like a lot of guys, not sure what I'm going to do. Went to work for HK for a while, and then, stopped that, and I went back to Delta and did a civilian contract job there for a while, and then I went out and did another contract job, government contract job. So it was like that classic retiree. The saying goes, and I'm a perfect example, is you're going to do 3 jobs after you retire from the military before you figure out the one you're going to settle in on, and I'm the poster child of that. I worked for HK. I went back into military or contract, civilian contract job at the unit. Then I did another military contract job before I decided to go self-employed. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna give this thing a shot. I'm gonna be self-employed. I'm gonna do the training thing, and I'm gonna really, I'm gonna try to make this work, Vickers tactical, as it were, and see if I can make this thing fly. And it's been off to the races ever since. Now I got 9 million irons in the fire. I do videos. I still do training. I've got firearms industry consulting that I do. I have a line out, market, accessories in the firearms industry. Now, one of the things I've done the last few years, books. I have coffee table books, Vickers Guide coffee table books. So it's all stuff that kind of led up to my time in the military and my passion in firearms and my experience in the military kind of led up to this. So now I'm taking maximum advantage of it in the firearms industry. And I wouldn't change it for anything. Times I get fatigued, obviously I get kind of burned out. I need a break, but I can't complain. I wouldn't change it for anything. Where are things going from here? We're in the middle of this COVID-19 thing right now. Honestly, it's kind of it's given me time to take a step back and really assess just how much I appreciate what I do. Yeah, I was getting a little burned out on training, a little bit burned out on classes, but being at home a lot and being able to kind of, think a lot has allowed me to really say, you know what, I do enjoy going out and doing classes. I do enjoy interacting with people, talking about guns and firearms and ammo and gear, and I do enjoy that, and it kind of reinvigorated that passion. So I still intend on doing that, doing classes throughout the country and whatnot. I don't plan on changing that anytime soon. Still doing books, got Vickers Guide books. They're coming out. We do about 2 a year now, and those are going real well. As far as the legacy I would like to leave would be hopefully some of the stuff that I have learned, and I'm not saying I invented this. I've endeavored to take information I got, whether it be firearms information or training or whatnot, and I've endeavored to try to simplify it and put it in terms that hopefully the average person can understand and translate that, and hopefully that gives people information that's going to help them out. Because one of the things I believe is really mastering a subject is when you can take a complex topic and simplify it to where you can explain it to a child. I remember, don't quote me on this, but I think there's an Albert Einstein, or it could be a Thomas Edison quote, I can't remember, but it's something like, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And I like that. There's a lot to that. I like to be able to take something, shooting it is one of those things that conceptually it's simple. Line up the gun and squeeze the trigger. Putting it into practice is very complex. There's a lot to it. So if you can take something that's complex and break it down to where somebody, a grade school kid could understand it, or at least understand the concept, then that's when you've mastered it. And that's my goal, I guess, in life now, would be to try to translate information that I've learned and I understand, and then present it in a way that is digestible, that hopefully somebody, when they're out training their kids or their family or their daughter or their loved ones, that they can present that information in a way that they can understand easily. That's kind of what drives me. Hey, Larry Vickers here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Click here to subscribe to the Vickers Tactical channel and take time out to check out some of our other favorite videos.